Hello, everybody. I'm so glad you're joining me today. Sorry about that little blip at the beginning. I keep getting connection issues today. But, anyways, hey, it's me, Tanya. Hello, hello. I'm excited to be here and play with you today. And I'm going to work on some liquid watercolors. Now, unfortunately, I can't get the camera in the angle that I wanted. So I'm just going to lift some of them up. If you haven't played with these before, it's not a worry. You don't have to have liquid watercolors, but they are a lot of fun. So if you can get a hold of some, I suggest it. This is one of my favorite brands, Ecoline, and they're really incredible when it comes to mixing colors and creating beautiful flowing shapes and interactions and almost like ombre effect from one color to the next. And that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to just play with some colors, do a little bit of an intuitive relaxation kind of thingy. But all painting is kind of intuitive and relaxing, but that's okay. That's kind of the gist of it. And I want to do sort of a kind of a dots on dots on dots kind of a situation, if that makes any sense. Anyway, I've got a few different colors to play with. You can grab whatever it is that you want to play with, and don't worry about it. Again, if you don't have liquid watercolors, grab your regular ones. This is really just about playing and having some fun and just enjoying the process a little bit. So, what I like to do, and this is one of my favorite tips, is head out to your local dollar store. I actually got these in Chinatown in Victoria, BC, and see if you can find some synthetic brushes and ones that aren't too expensive. Because the one thing about the liquid watercolors, especially when you get into some of the deeper blues or the yellows, they are very staining. So you don't want to use your regular good watercolor brushes because then they'll be stained and that pigment sometimes will come out later. So I like these guys. I find them quite good to use, and they hold a heck of a lot of water. Anyhoodle, so what I'm gonna do is start just kind of a background, and then I'm gonna push water into it. And the one thing I really like about playing with this medium is that it loves water. And depending on the color, many of the colors will push each other around, and then you get these really interesting effects. So that's what I want to really explore today. And you can start with your page wet or damp, or you can go directly with the paint. I like to create some shapes. Now I'm going to actually hold this up and hopefully, can we get the sunlight to play with us today? A little bit. You can kind of see. So I'm just creating a shape here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop some pigment in it. And because these pigments love to disperse so fast in the water, what you'll see is kind of that kind of an effect. Now, of course, it depends on the color and how much you're using. Let me see. I'm going to try something. Let's take this off the tripod and let's see if we can't actually see. Oh, there we go. Now you can see. I wish I could hold it this way the whole time, but that's about the amount of liquid that I have on. So it's quite wet and flowy. And the wetter it is, the more movement we're going to get in the colors, especially when you start to add one to the next. And you see I've left the inside dry, and that's because I want to go from light to dark. And if this is wet and I put dark, it's going to go and flow right out into the outside. So that's what I'm doing here. Now let's get this guy back up on here. Excuse all the noises I have on my microphone really close to my face, actually. Okay, let's play. I'm going to do a very, very light color. And this is just almost like a placeholder for me. I always say that when I'm doing videos, but this is just going to show me where the colors are. Now, one of the reasons I don't tape my page is because I like the buckling. I like that as part of the process. But B, can you tell? Tell me you used to be a teacher without being a teacher. B, I really like being able to grab my page and just shift it around and see what I can get. Now, because this is the initial layer, this is probably the only one that I'm going to want a little bit flat. And the color is okay. It's a little wonk wonk. So I think I might add I might add in a little bit of this, which is one of my favorites. I call it tangerine. I don't know what the actual color is. Let's see. I'm gonna pull on the eyeglasses here. It's called apricot. Isn't that lovely? Anyway, we're gonna add a little bit of that. And now, do you see how it just did that all by itself and it just pushes the pigment? I love that. That is my favorite thing about playing with liquid watercolor is that they push and pull each other all over the place. And this guy, if you haven't seen any of my videos before, I call it the schoolyard bully because this yellow pigment wants to take over everything. So this is the one of the ones that I will use probably sparingly or when I really want to push things around and get some different effects. Now, you see how it is starting to pool where there's a lot of liquid? And that looks really neat. I was going to have this a solid color, but I'm telling you, this looks really neat. I wish we could do a zoom in on these lives, but I can't. So I'm just going to let it be. But what it's happening here, I am loving that. So that is very interesting. Now what I want to do is I'm actually going to go directly into the dry area because I want some of that orange, but only where the white is. And then I'm going to pull it into the areas that are damp and it should just naturally blend. We'll see if that'll be the case today or not, but sometimes it's not. And you don't have to do it like this. You can put it in a palette and just grab your paint out of a palette. Today I'm just being intuitive, so I'm just letting things go where they want to go. See where it's hitting the other colors, how it's just naturally going in like that? Love it. But I actually want some of that orange directly on the page. So I'm going to grab a little brush. Just going to try and do something kind of circular, not completely. Right? Like that. And so where it's hit the dry paper, that orange is going to stay true to color. Where we do this sort of thing, it's going to blend out. Now, the beauty of this is when your paper is damp, not quite dry, not soaking wet like this. This is a big pool here if you can't see it. I'm actually going to push that around a bit. But when it is damp, that's where you get this really magical push-pull of colors. And so I might play with that a little bit, but right now I am really enjoying the way the color has gone. And I think just to have a little balance, I'm just going to go like that there. Not by much, just a little bit. And it's naturally going to flow where the paper has buckled. And so when you're doing intuitive work, it's really fun to just let things happen. And for someone like me, who comes from a background of being very perfectionistic, I used to do photorealistic acrylic painting. And I loved it. And I loved all the detail. But I was one of those people, I would get obsessed and I would do, spend 4 hours just doing tiny dots that really only me could see. So I wanted to learn how to let go of that. And I thought, oh, yeah, I'll do watercolor, not knowing how challenging it could be. But the thing about watercolor that's really neat is when you learn the lesson of don't freaking touch it, which I need to come under and say that was challenging. When you learn how to do that, then you get some really amazing things happening. But I want to show you this technique just in case I lose my connection because it's kind of giving me warnings and stuff. Remember I said about the yellow? Well, I'm going to add a little bit of this. This is a chartreuse color. I love this one. It's very subtle. And sometimes it pushes and sometimes it doesn't. So I'm just going to pop a little bit on here and let's just see what it decides to do. A little bit of blending, not too much. I think maybe I like it here and maybe down there a little bit. Now, my instinct is always get in there and mess with it, but I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to touch it. I'm going to leave it alone. I'm leaving it alone. What I am going to do is start going inside. And I really like this color, this tangerine, and you can see parts of it here. Well, maybe you can't see with the angle. You know what? Let's pull this off the carriage and have a look. It's always fun to see up close. Okay. So you can see now that this is sort of dry and then that's soaking wet, right? So if I put liquid watercolor here, it's probably not going to move. It's just going to sit still. If I put it here, it's going to jump in and play with these two colors. And you can see how this decided to move around and push itself around. Same with that. Remember, that was one drop and look what it's done. It's just going all over the place. So I kind of want to have a bit of a pink happening here. So I'm going to play doing the same technique again on the dry, and then I'm going to join it up and see what happens. Oh, I should pull out a bit. See what happens in the areas where it's dry versus where it's wet, just to see. We're just going to see. We're going to play. We're going to play, having a Bob Ross moment, you know? I never got to enjoy Bob Ross when he was originally on because I'm in Canada and that was not a show that we had. We didn't have cable and PBS and stuff back in the day in jazz like that. But let's see, can I pull this a little further down so that it's hopefully there? Okay. That's a bit better, I think. All right. So didn't get to enjoy him until I was an adult. And I have to say, there's just something really relaxing about watching him, even if you don't like his style. But he was quite a fascinating person. And oh, I don't have my pink. I'm going to grab some pink. I really liked what he had to say. You know, besides the jokes that everybody makes about happy little trees and all that silliness, but he really had a lot of fun things to say and some really good ideas if you were paying attention. So I quite enjoyed that. And somebody said my voice sounded like Bob Ross once, and I wasn't offended. I was like, oh, thanks. But I'm not goofing around and being silly, that is. Okay, got some more colors. What can we play with? I think I'm going to keep this in the warm tones, even though I grabbed a bunch of blue, but we'll see. I think I want to do a little bit of this reddish orange color. Just here. Now this is bone dry already. So what's going to happen when these two touch? Not much. But, get that on my brush here. When it hits those other areas, it should be really interesting. So I'm just going to overlap it and let's see. Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. It's making my mouth water, and that's not a bad thing. There's something really fun about juicy pigments, you know, watching the colors come together and doing their thing and creating a little bit of magic. Ooh, that's fun. I actually like that. I haven't done this before. I'm going to be totally honest. I usually do everything quite wet. And you can see here where we have a straight line because it's dry on wet on dry. And here where it's wet on damp, this is all going to push out by itself without me doing anything. Now, ideally, I think I would have liked to make this not so thick, but that's okay. I'm just playing around a bit. Let's see what that does. So this here is already on the move. This is pushing, pushing. I don't know how far that's going to go. Kind of like we had the chartreuse, right? It just decided to push itself out and see where it wants to be. And that's good too. I do, however, want a little bit of pink. Now this is, ooh, tight. This is probably going to get a little lost in the red because they're very similar tones. But I just want to play with it a little, see what happens. This is actually one of my favorite colors. It's a cool pink color, and it is called, in the world's tiniest typewriting here, Pastel Rose. Don't like the name, but the color, look at that color. So pretty. I use this in a lot of the work that I do with liquid watercolor because the color itself is really pretty, but also it's a nice blender and it does really work with pretty much everything I've ever tried it with. So It's a lot of fun too. All right. Again, my dots. Do, 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 do. Okay. Right. So you can really see where things are wet and things are not, right? If you don't like the look of that, you can always go in and push it around a little bit more. But that's okay. I kind of like it. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to work a little bit faster and start to go a little bit darker and let these colors push. And so what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go into maybe like a purpley color and let these guys push each other and create this kind of interesting effect where we have the intersection between the colors. And I'm also going to just do a little blendy blend just for fun, just because I feel like it, helping it along. Again, this is totally intuitive, right? I had no plan when I sat down other than I wanted to play with liquid watercolors and see what kind of things I could get happening. The next one I'm going to use is, I never read the colors out, but for some reason today I feel like it, Violet Pastel. Just this really pretty purple color, but light. Sort of a gentle color. Okay. Now, this is one of those places where it would have been nice to have it on a palette, but that's all right. Ooh, that didn't go where I wanted, but that's okay. Oh, she's off to the races. Well, poo. That wasn't what I wanted. What are you going to do? They're going to do what they want. Okay. I'm going to go here. Right? Remember what I was saying about how that pink kind of disappears, but it makes this beautiful blend? You know, it's like a nice transition color. I quite like it. All right, we're going to just start to go into a bit of a circle here. Okay, that looks neat. Now, if you want some really cool effects, I do have a heck of a lot of water here. So normally I would probably just pull that out, but I'm going to let that dry. The thing about liquid watercolors is they dry substantially darker than what you have when it's light. And often they'll go very matte. So this beautiful blending of color, you're not really going to see that beautiful edge like you would in a digital painting, but that's okay too. You can play around with that and you can always come back and paint on it again if you like. But there are some places, I don't know if this is going to be dry already, where you can come in and just add a little bit of water and then see if the pigment decides to push around or not. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But I'm going to leave that. For now, I want to go a little bit darker and I'm going to use a blue. This is one I haven't really played with a lot yet. This is Prussian blue, their version of a Prussian blue. It's not really, but I'm going to do hardly any because it's quite a strong blue. Kind of an eggy shape. And then if you feel like you want to add a little blending, get your brush wet, get all the excess off, and then you can just come in and run it off the edge here. That's what I'm going to do. Just give it a little helping hand because I want it to push out a little bit right there. And then of course, where the blue and the red are going to meet, they're going to make their own purple naturally. So you could do that, maybe a little bit here, just to see what it does. But also, I like that this color is running in here. Okay. Lots of liquid, lots of space for pigment to make a break for it. You see how we've got a darker edge here where we went on the dry? I quite like that. I want to enhance that. So I'm actually going to add a tiny bit of blue maybe here because the paper is dipping down, so it's going to run. And maybe here. And just let that do its thing. Okay. Tap, 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 tap. Are we hearing that? Should I take off the mic and give you a little ASMR action here? Fun, fun. Okay. Ooh, ooh, interesting stuff happening. I like it. I like it. Okay. Now I'm going to let that dry just a little bit. See how where I put the water? Let's pull this thing off the tripod and I'm going to show you up close again so you can see a bit more. Okay. Now, do you see where that's where I forced some water in when it was still a little damp but not completely wet or dry? And the red pigment just decided to go have a little playtime in the water there. That's the kind of thing that you can't plan. It's going to do what it wants to do. And so that is the beauty of liquid watercolor and doing intuitive work because it's just going to go wherever the heck it wants and you can end up with these beautiful, beautiful effects. So here's the big pool of water happening right here. And things are just kind of pushing themselves around. And that's looking very interesting. Got a bit of a bullseye thing going on, which is kind of neat. Now, it's a little rainbow-licious, one of my favorite words. And that's okay for the moment. I can always go darker or shift the color palette a little bit. Sometimes it's fun to play with a limited palette. And that way you can't actually come in and let the mind overtake the intuition, which for me can be a challenge sometimes. But it's also fun if you can just pull your paints out and just let things happen. Like that's what I'm doing today. I knew I wanted to go from light to dark. Other than that, I didn't really make any plans. So there's a little bit of that aspect, but also it's fun to have all your paints out and see what you can do. Just, grabbing the ones that really affect you. I'm going to go in here and just plunk a little bit of purple down just because I feel like this color is really pretty. And maybe we can get it to move around a bit. Sometimes, I don't know if this painting will do it, but sometimes what I will do is I'll put the colors down and then I'll come in sort of like I did here with a lot of water and it will push the pigments out. And when you have a combination of colors, it's really interesting what happens and which pigments decide they want to move and which ones will stay placed. So the other thing you can do is this. Now you can't see it from your aspect, but the paper is actually doing this, coming down, kind of going down there. So if I put liquid here, it's going to fall this way. If I put liquid here, it's going to go this way. I like what that's doing, but I can also come in here with my finger or a tool or whatever and press down and create a new area that will make the water flow. So if I didn't like what was happening here, but I kind of do, oops, my finger went right in there. I'm just going to do that. Then I could force the pigments to move around. So there's all sorts of different fun things that you can try. Another thing I really love doing, especially when I'm doing florals, is grabbing a flathead pin and using the blunt side to get in and just scrape into the paper. And then it'll leave the pigment there, but it'll also push the colors together. And you get these beautiful, like the veining in florals in the leaves or in the petals. So that's a lot of fun to play with as well. But for today, we're doing that. And I'm quite digging how this is creating this vertical situation happening here. And in addition to the paper being like this, I have a crinky old antique desk underneath this flat board, and it's not flat. It's kind of wavy too. So you can see that this isn't really moving much, but this is more. And that's because the desk is kind of on an angle. So really, you got to take the stuff that you've got and let it do what it wants to do and just see what kind of shenanigans you can get up to. Okay. I like what's going on here. I do want to go darker into the center. I have another darker blue. Where should be? This one here, I think, is indigo. Indigo? Yes. Indigo blue. Oh, it would help if I did that so you could see it. Can you see it? Sorry, I have direct sunlight in my face and I literally can't see my screen, but that's okay. Indigo. Let me give that a shot. I think it's gonna look really similar to this, but when it dries, it will be a bit different. I'm gonna put that actually right in the center because I want that center to go quite dark. Oh yeah, I can see the difference. Okay. Okay. So that one, I'm just gonna let that do its thing like that. Maybe push it out a bit. Oh, it's gonna go down here. Oh well, that's okay. We'll let it do what it wants to do. Let's join these up here. There's that purple. I'm not sure if you can see it on camera, but there was that Prussian blue that I used, which mixed with this red. And then I put some purple, and it's pushed that purple to the edge. And that's where things start to get really cool, where you get these really interesting edges of color. So I'm going to clean off my brush. And this is another thing I really like to do is if I have a lot of pigment, sorry, I had to have a little snack break. Forgot I was shooting this live. um, please ignore the chewing. Anyway, sometimes you have these little areas where there's a lot of liquid happening. This is actually going to be really cool because it looks like that dark is going to move on the outside. But down here, I can just dip my brush into that and I can go into other areas where I'd like to play a little bit and just introduce that dampness back into the page. And you see how this blue said, "Oh, water, I'm going over there." Water loves water. So as soon as it finds an outlet, off she goes, right? So I'm going to just continue on playing here, make this whole area like that. And because this is a golden yellow and this is bluey purple, yellow and blue make green. So we're going to have a little edge here of green eventually. It's going to do its thing. And I'm going to do the same on this edge. Grab some liquid here. Now, of course, you are playing with the viscosity of the ink and you are playing with the density of pigment. Some pigments are lighter than others, so they will travel more or they will sit into the natural grooves in the paper. I'm using a cold press, which means there's texture on it. And the paper that I'm using for this is actually one, a lot of artists snub this paper because of it being a less expensive paper, but I'm going to tell you it is one of my favorites for doing liquid watercolors because the sizing on it makes it float. So on very high quality papers, they're often a little bit more like a sponge, like they just pull the liquid in, and then sometimes you'll have some play with that, and sometimes you won't. On this one, I get two things that I really like. First off, it will hold a lot of liquid before it dries because the sizing is doing that push-pull with it. So the paper isn't as absorbent, which means I have a longer drying time and more time for things to play and kind of maneuver into the shapes that they want to. Plus, it likes to buckle. That's why I did not tape it down, also because I like to move the paper a bit. But it does give you that chance to play with those hills and valleys a little bit and let the colors move around. So all sorts of fun things to do. Okay, so what I did was, again, I came in here, I got those edges damp, and then left it sit for a second. And then I'm going to come in with some of that existing color. There's a big pool of liquid here. There's a pool of liquid here. And I can start to introduce it back like this, very slightly. But it will begin to flow and it will begin to create that intersection of color again. Now, the one thing I do want to say through trial and error is that these pigments can get muddy very quickly. Again, they're going to dry completely different than what you see. They're going to dry very matte. And it's good to know that beforehand, right? So you don't want to get too carried away with all the colors because you're going to just end up with wah wah kind of brown. Unless you're really going for that. In all cases, then, enjoy, enjoy. But if it's not what you're going for, then be mindful of where you're putting all your pigment. So I'm just putting a little edge of the yellow on this red here just because I like that. It's almost like an eye, isn't it? Okay. But ultimately, I really want to just let these play. Now, I don't want this wet to connect with this wet because otherwise that blue is going to go over here. And I kind of like this thing that it's doing. Now, I wanted that to be quite dark. So I'm going to put some purple in here and see if it'll push out. It might not. And then I'm going to put inside of that some more of that indigo. And we'll see what it does other than slip slide down vertically. So that's a situation where I might grab a little something like a brush that I have sitting here and slide it underneath very selectively where you put it in the hopes that I can get this to move where I want. Now, I could be mecking it up. I could be. But again, this is intuitive painting and just playing. All right, so what's happened is I've actually lifted the paper about half an inch, and you can see this already is happening, which I don't mind. This is starting to happen, which I don't mind. I think these two will intersect and we'll get more color. If I want this to go further, I can add some more liquid and it will just naturally go back. Do I like that idea? I kind of do. Okay, so let's do that. Let's do that. I'm going to create a line, very subtle connector here, and let that see if it wants to leak into that line. It might not. It might just do that, but I think that looks really neat. I have a big air bubble here. There we go. I think that's looking... I'm going to just stand back from that for a second. Let's see. What is it looking like? Kind of neat, hey? Kind of like an pop art kind of thing. And I'm just going to stand up and take a look and... Oh, hey, people are here. Thank you for joining. I'm so excited to have people with me live. I usually do these on my own, so this is fun. I should make this a regular thing on Mondays. Yeah, let me know if you have any questions, if you're enjoying this, or you're just hanging out on your Monday, chilling out with me as I make some totally intuitive, crazy art. So there's that too. All right. So you can't see, but there's a big splash of liquid that I just added. Hey, you know what? Oh, I stained my backboard. Do that all the time. Get excited, start talking about stuff, forget that my brush is filled with dark blue ink, and stick it on the board. Oh, well, c'est la vie. That's why I have the board. Just as an aside, I say to you, if you have the situation like I do, where you have a desk that's kind of wonky and you want an area that's flat, or another good thing if you've got kids or if you yourself really enjoy getting down with the paints being all over the place, but you don't want to ruin the surface underneath, head to the local lumberyard. You don't have to buy the fancy $250 board. I'm not kidding. At the local art supply, go to the lumberyard, get an offcut for $5. Works perfect. Anyway. PSA for the day. Right. Here's what I was trying to show you. See that we have this area that's kind of damp. And I'm just going to give you sort of a view of the damp areas of the painting and what's going on. Right. So things are drying at different speeds because depending on where the liquid is. And those are the areas that you can come in and play with some more. So if I wanted to maybe push that a little bit and add another color and pop it right in the middle, it will push it out. And over here, I was kind of hoping that this guy might leak into here. It's not really, but I can do this and push it up ever so slightly she said, doing it one-handed with the camera in her hand and hoping that we get something happening over here. And if they're not, we can help it along by making that little joint area a little bit deeper and see if it wants to play or if it just wants to sit still. Wah, wah. Hey, everybody, let's watch paint dry. Like literally. Anyway, I'm going to grab this. I took the paintbrush out. Look what's happening, right? It's just going to go where it wants to go. But me being who I am, I want to just tilt. I'm going to tilt the whirl a little bit. See, got my hand here. Tilting, letting it run down. And then I'm going to take my hand off. And now it's going to go back to where it wants. And oh, that looks pretty spiffy. I'm liking it. What do you guys think? Are we enjoying? Kind of fun. Okay, so at this point, I've got this very heavy, heavy section of paint happening, which is now slowly creeping back into the center. I don't mind that. But I wanted my center to be the darkest focal point. So I think what I'm going to do is let it dry and maybe let it push around a little bit. If you end up with stuff like this, where you are moving and you're not paying attention, or the brush is really full and you end up with little drip drops, either let it be and be part of the painting and maybe, let it add to a couple other places to balance it out or not, up to you. Or if you're very fortunate and you catch it right away, you can always use a clean brush that you get with damp with clean water and then grab the excess out with a bit of toweling or a cloth and then use it to dab and it will actually pull that up. But because I left it sit, that is now permanent. Nothing I can do. But I don't mind it. I don't mind it. All right. I'm going to, I think, do a little shifting, a little manipulation into the center because I want that to be dark. And then otherwise, I think I'm pretty happy with that. I wouldn't mind a little juxtaposition of yellow into the brown versus the yellow. So I think what I'm going to do is grab this uber bright lemon yellow, which you aren't going to notice because I'm putting it into a brown area. But sometimes this is the one that likes to really push stuff around. So I'm just going to do that and let it see what it decides it wants to do because I like this relating back to that. And then I'm going to just come up in here. And I really wanted that center to be a bit darker. Oh, that's still damp and it's going to run all the way down again. That's okay though. Or I could just cheat it and do this. Nope, that's going to move. That's okay. Let her be. Now what you're going to see when it dries, and I'm going to put it in my notes when it dries. And by the way, just a little side note here. All my content on this channel is free. I have another publication that I just started, which is all about artists and art desks and art supplies. So if you like that kind of thing, check that out. It's called The Artful Desk. And I'll put a link in the live somewhere. But this channel is totally free. And I really wanted to have it as a way to build community and talk about the things that we do as artists and the funny things we do that are quirky that only artists do. But also to be open to anybody on Substack that wants to look at it, have some fun playing with art, learn how to create, how to not be perfect. So if that interests you, please do subscribe and enjoy the free content. And I do free tutorials and stuff on YouTube. And I do every 2 weeks, I do a newsletter that brings a little bit of happy and joy to your inbox. Talking about art and culture and all sorts of stuff. Food recipes, you name it. It's the full shebang. Anyhow, had to do a little plug for myself. I always forget to do that. So I'm liking that. I've pushed it a little bit too much. I don't like this happening. So I'm just going to just finish it with a little bit of blue back in the middle. Okay. And before I get any grandiose ideas of mucking around with it anymore, walk away, let go, let it be, and see how it looks when it dries. I think it's going to be quite interesting. Not at all what I was expecting to do today, but that's the beauty of intuitive painting. I hope you enjoyed this. I did. I love having these opportunities to come on here and share a bit of silliness and color and playtime with you. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed. If you did, give me, how do you do this? I'm so used to doing it on other platforms. Is there a love button, a thumbs up, or a comment or something? Let me know you're here. And if you're catching on the replay, thanks for hanging out with me. Feel free to ask any questions. I love to talk about this stuff. And I'm Tanya. I'm really grateful to be here, and thank you for joining me today. Okay, we're going to leave it there. Don't forget to check the notes coming up later on today and tomorrow, and we'll see how this looks when she's dry. Okay, see you next time. Bye.